Good afternoon, everyone. This is Group 8, Research Methodology, and we are going to be taking you through observation. Observation is often considered a better method than the other methods. We have very many methods, including questionnaires, interviews, but then why the observation? We shall first of all define what observation is, and from definition, as you can see, it's a data collection method in which where a trained person can observe subjects and record information about the characteristics of what they see or about a phenomena. When you look at this, observation entails noting some phenomenon, maybe such as marital conflict, because you cannot really start asking people about their conflicts and everything, or a board meeting. And when you talk about observation, it's not only seeing, but it entails use of other senses like maybe smelling and then hearing. So all those are part of observation, so it doesn't point straight to seeing. Then we can use observation in several things. For example, we can use it, maybe say we said in a board meeting, and then so finally our goal here is to answer a theoretical question. Meaning, are we supposed to observe with a clear research purpose in mind? Like, you can't just go to observe for no reason. You have to observe when you know what you're going to observe about. Yes, so I'll invite my next colleague to take us through the next thing.
Okay, let me start off with the use case scenarios. My name is Agonya Michelle Nina. And when we talk of use case scenarios, we are meaning when observation, like when will observation be useful? So our first is like natural behavior. And here we study how people behave naturally, like without interfering them. So for example, watching how children play in a playground without telling them they are being observed. So that's like just natural behavior. Then the next use case scenario, we have complex interactions. And when situations are too complicated to capture easily, using surveys or interviews, this is where observation can come in. An example could be observing teamwork in a hospital emergency room to see how nurses and doctors coordinate under pressure. Yes, then the next use case scenario we have are sensitive topics. And people might not be talking about sensitive topics, people might not want to talk openly about something if asked directly, but observation can give us insights without needing these people to answer uncomfortable questions. For example, we can observe interactions in support groups dealing with addiction. We don't need to like interact with the addicts directly, but probably you can observe when they're having these support group meetings. Then our next use case scenario is exploratory research. Here, when researchers need to like start understanding a very new idea, like phenomenon, and need to like get information, detailed information, they can use observation because here there is no prior information about such a new topic. So this is where observation comes in. For example, we can observe how a newly introduced technology is being used in a remote village. Yes. Now I'm going to start off with types of observation, and we have structured observation. And then structured observation follows a predefined system, and to observe like, okay, this one just follows a predefined system. Yes. So it just ensures that every observation is consistent and systematic. For example, a checklist used by a teacher to observe student behavior in class. That's like structured. It follows a predefined system. Then we have unstructured observation where no system is used like beforehand. So like it's flexible, it's just free. So it's good for exploring new topics. So for example, we have observing community behavior at a festival without a checklist. It's just flexible. So in short, structured is organized, systematic, predefined, and then unstructured is flexible, open-ended, and exploratory. Let me invite the next person to take us through the remaining types.
Good afternoon. My name is Natibuli Elizabeth Gloria. and I'm going to take you through the next types of observations. So the next type we're going to start with is the participant observation. This one is basically where the observer observes by making himself more or less a member of the group he is observing so that he can experience whatever the members of the group experience. So when you find out this type of observation, you have to take part in whatever activity is being carried out with those other people. Yes, and then we also have non-participant observation where the observer observes without any attempt on his part to experience what others are feeling. So here you are just an onlooker of whatever is going on, whatever activity is being carried out. Yes. Then the next observation we have indirect observation and direct observation. So for indirect observations, it involves the use of a camera, a tape recorder, or a video camera for recording. It is where the subject is dead or just refuses to take part in the study. In this case, the observer may observe the physical traces left behind and make conclusions about the subject. So with indirect observation, you're basically using a camera to record whatever was left by the participant in an activity without getting in direct contact with that participant. So you just observe whatever was left behind and then you draw your own conclusions. Then we have the direct observation where a researcher has a direct view. Here, the observer merely records whatever occurs with no attempt of manipulating the situation. So in this case, you can have the observer observing whatever is happening within a group of people. So here, the observer will just look, study the situation, study the behavior, study the mannerisms, and then draw his conclusion. Yes. Let me invite my next colleague to take you through the remaining bit of observation.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Chigangubazi Fred, and I'll be taking you the next two steps of observation. Under this, we have the overt observation. Here, this means that the observed group is aware of the presence of the researcher, and they know or they are aware that their behavior is being observed. And a good example here can be like if at all students are having their final exams, there are those officials who keep on moving to exam centers to observe how exams have been conducted. So the students are aware that they have the officials at their centers. That can be the good example. Then when we push to another, we have the covert observation. Under here, the participants are unaware that the researcher is observing their behaviors. Here, the good example that we can have is if at all you're observing how people conduct themselves within a community, people will not be aware that the researcher is observing their behaviors in the community. It can be how the sanitation of the whatever of the community, so they are not aware that they are being observed. When we push to the next slide, under here we have several questions that the observer that should examine. Yeah, and the number one question we have what should be observed, how the observation should be recorded. We can use the cameras as they have said, what type of tools and techniques need to be used, and how to ensure accuracy of the observation. Then we have what type of relationship should be there between the observer and the observed, how the desired relationship should be established. Yeah, then under this we have the processes under which we go through when performing observation. We have what we call sensation, of which here we use the sense organs like the eyes, ears, nose, to carry out the observation. And this specifically depends on the physical alertness of the observer. Then we have the attention. Under here, it deeply relates to the willpower. And to experience the number observer to form the habit. Then you have the perception, and the perception comes last and is concerned with the interpretation of the reports that have been generated after making observation. I think I'll invite the next speaker to take on. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul James, Group 8, and my colleagues have already defined observations and the methods involved, how and when to observe, and how people can also be aware or unaware. Now, before carrying out observation, there are some things that we have to undertake before going into observation. And some of these things include, first of all, we have to select the site or event, and then this should be actual. It should be relevant to the theoretical questions or convenient to access before carrying out this observation. Then after selecting the event that you are aware of, for example, if you are maybe going to observe, if you want, maybe your observation is based on the sales reduction, so you want to go and observe from the business and see why the sales are not increasing. That means you have to first decide that place. Like, for example, I'm going to observe basing on this branch, and then you define your objectives clearly. Yeah, you define your objectives clearly. That is, of course, outlining what behaviors or phenomenon will be observed when you are there and why observation is the appropriate method for this case. Then after doing that, you develop a protocol. Now, a protocol in this case is just like a detailed plan that includes what to observe, when, on, and how. And this may involve pilot testing to define that approach. Then after that, you select the tools now. Now selecting the tools involves choosing appropriate data collection instruments such as the checklist or the field notes or maybe the video recording. As my colleagues already mentioned that video recording is among the ways to go and observe. Or sometimes you just go with your checklist and then tick something when you see that you have your checklist already. So when you go and observe and you say this thing is appropriate, you can either tick yes or no, something like that. Yeah. So now the next thing is to conduct the observation. And now this is implementing the observation according to that protocol while remaining as unobstructive, that is unobtrusive as possible to avoid influencing participant behavior. So in this case, when you are there observing, many people can also get to know that you are here to observe, and other people can be unaware that you are just here to observe. But just make sure that you don't tamper with their line of work. Just make sure you are there to observe and go away, nothing else. And then finally, after carrying out all this observation, then you come and analyze data that you have collected from the field. That is, after collecting that data, analyze it for patterns and the insights relevant to the research questions, which means right now you are going to base on the data that you have collected to determine as why the cells in a particular branch are actually reducing in this case. This is all I have to present for today, and let me invite my next colleague to proceed from there. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Masi Mwanguzi and I'll be taking you through some of the instruments used in observation. First, we have the observation guides. These can be in printed form or on your phone, and they are used to see the comparable information from the several sites from different people. They can be structured and they are easier for one, they make the observation easier for the researcher to get results. Then we have schedules. These are data requirements that are identified by analyzing the core of the problem objectives of the study, and then they investigate the questions and some of the concepts and the items of the data that are to be collected through the observation. Then we have the recording sheets, where there is, or call them the checklist, where there is a yes or no. So maybe you've gone and you're observing a school and you have written different questions and they already have definite answers, yes or no. So you click on those answers. Then we have a field observation log, which is like a diary where you write in every day you go for the observation. So it's from your diary where you can have your daily log, your daily observation, the monthly observation at the end. Then we have also mechanical devices, which include cameras, tape recorders, video recorders. So when you're conducting the observation, there should be some things that should avoid. One includes the training observers, so that observers have to be trained to avoid the biasness, so that they do not see what they want to see, but actually see the things the way they are related to the question. And then you have to use structured protocols, because once you use the unstructured protocols, someone is going to tune their observations in the way they want them to be, yet they're not answering the question at hand. And then you have to use multiple observers. You have to send different people in the same area at different times to get different views. And then you can also use blind observation. Here is where the observers are unaware of the specific question. They're just observing and write whatever they observe, and then you come up with a question at the end of the observation. That's it from Group 8. Thank you.